Welcome to Tales of Kent and Kentish Tales, or Kentish Tales and Tales of Kent, depending on how you feel about things. These are all sorts of stories of the myths, folklore and history of this great and wonderful county. The three bears on this sign are in reference to the Fitzurse family. Fitzurse is a normal word meaning son of the bear, which brings to mind a kind of cuddly, fluffy kind of creature, but in this case, it really isn't. Reginald Fitzurse was a knight and a landowner in this area. He owned a manor in Barham and also one in Teeston, as well as land in Northamptonshire and Leicestershire. He was the great-grandnephew of Henry I, so any slight against Henry II was a slight against his very own family. So, what is Reginald Fitzurse most well known for? Well, it lies behind these doors. Inside Canterbury Cathedral. He's famous, of course, for this, the killing of Thomas Becket. This is part of Henry IV's tomb within the cathedral itself. It shows Fitzurse there with the figures of the bears on his coat, and you know all about the killing of Becket, as I mentioned it all before. Edward Grimm here, he's a monk and he was present at the scene, and he declared that Fitzurse seemed to be the guy in charge. Fitzurse called Becket a traitor, and Becket called him a pimp, possibly because Fitzurse provided Henry II with female entertainment. Fitzurse tried to drag Becket from the building, but Becket shoved him so hard he nearly knocked him over. In the fight that followed, Fitzurse landed some of the blows that eventually would kill Becket. So what do you do after you've murdered an archbishop? Well, the king took no direct action against the four knights. So they left Canterbury and headed back to Saltwood Castle, and then it was on to St Malling in Lewes, and took over a manor belonging to the former archbishop. It was said that when they put their bloodied weapons down on the table refused to accept them and turned over and left the weapons clanking onto the floor. When the Pope heard of their deeds, he excommunicated them, meaning they wouldn't be able to go to church, so they wouldn't be able to save their souls. The knights then left for Hugh de Morville's property in Yorkshire at Knaresborough Castle. Benedict of Petersburg tells us that whilst they were there, the locals would have nothing to do with these archbishop-killing knights, and even the dogs would not eat the crumbs that fell from their table. What Fitzurse did next was give up half of his land and his manor in Somerset to the Knights Templar. It's possible that he was raising funds so he could go to Rome to visit the Pope. When he was there, he asked the Pope for forgiveness, and the Pope said, "No, you've got to go on crusade to Jerusalem." So it was on crusade that apparently they died. Some say they were buried in the very church of the Holy Sepulchre at the entrance, so people may always walk over their graves. Professor Nicholas Vincent, in his work, The Murders of Thomas Becket, said that the king took over most of the land of the four knights and only allowed a tiny amount to pass to their female relatives. In this area, the land was passed to one of Fitzurse's relatives, a de Barham, and that is why eventually this place becomes known as Barham. So some say Fitzurse didn't even go on crusade, or if he did go on crusade, he didn't go back to England, where he would have been quite unpopular. Instead, he went all the way to Ireland. Now, as a story, this doesn't make much sense because I understand that the Irish are quite religious too. But when he was there, he changed his name to Mayhem. Now, Edmund Spenser, the Elizabethan poet, states in his view of the state of Ireland, the MacMahons in the north were actually ancient English, and they were the descendants of the Fitzurse, which were a noble family in England. So this suggests that all MacMahons, whoever they may be, are all related to a former archbishop killer. According to a tale from Flanders, the men didn't even go on crusade at all. But what happened to them was they lost their sense of smell and taste after having committed a heinous crime in some kind of proto-coronavirus issue. They went to Rome, and there the Pope ordered them to lead a life of continuous wandering, never staying 2 nights in the same place, until their lost senses came back. One day they arrived at Cologne, and there, on seeing some wine being poured for them, they regained their sense of taste, and exclaimed, "Oh, blessed Cologne!" And then they reached Michelin, and there the smell of some freshly baked bread, carried past by a woman in a basket, brought their other lost sense, and they exclaimed, "Oh, holy Michelin!" There is even a story that they lived out the rest of their days in the city, and that there was once a plaque on the wall of a chapel which read, unfortunately the chapel was pulled down and the inscription was removed, but apparently somebody noted it down, and the inscription reads, well, you can see that essentially the murderers of Thomas Becket lived out their lives and had a happy life, and died and were buried in the city of Michelin. So which of these stories you choose to believe? Well, I leave entirely up to you. If you've enjoyed this tale and want to learn more, why not click below and you can find a reading list. Or you might want to follow me on Facebook or Twitter, and I would hope that you would like and subscribe as well. Thank you.